Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another installment of Scout Selections here for Monday, November 11th. Before we get into today's play of the day, quick recap of what happened yesterday. Unfortunately, we picked up a loss with the Marlon Mack rushing yards over 82.5, as he ended up going under in the end. Overall, most of it was going to come down to game flow. We thought that Mack would get 19 carries minimum. He ended up with exactly 19 carries, but unfortunately the Colts were not winning as we thought that they would be, including most of the people that had them in Survivor. But overall, they were losing the majority of the game. They ended up abandoning the run, and for some reason they kept going shotgun 5 wide with Brian Hoyer, who was absolutely terrible yesterday. I don't really know what that game plan was. Mack was actually doing pretty well. They just didn't give him the ball enough, in my opinion, down the stretch, and they pretty much abandoned the running game to some degree when they fell behind a bit early. So unfortunately, we picked up a loss there, but we look to bounce back today with another college basketball play, which so far has worked out quite nicely. So in terms of the play today, we'll be on a matchup between Kent State and Towson. And Towson originally opened up roughly at Pick'em. They're currently being bet up to roughly -2.5 market wide right now, but DraftKings still has Towson at -2 at -112, and that will be the line that we will be using for the play of the day. Now, in terms of the actual game itself, both teams are undefeated. Kent State ended up playing against a D3 team in their first game of the season at home, and they ended up winning by 39 points. As for Towson, however, they actually have played 2 games. They ended up beating a D3 team also in their last game by 69 points. But before that, they did play George Washington University at home, and they ended up winning by 14. So Towson has actually played a D1 opponent this season, whereas Kent State has not. As a result, the stats between both teams are a little bit skewed because of the fact that Kent State only played one team that's in D3, so the numbers might look better than people originally anticipate. So for example, Kent State is averaging 97 points and 52 rebounds. Those are excessive. That's only because of the fact that they played against the D3 team. Those numbers will come back down to earth. Don't simply just follow the stats. There's more behind the scenes that the stats are not telling you. In terms of the actual game itself, though, Towson's averaging 44.5 rebounds. Kent State's averaging 52. However, once again, that has to do with the fact that they played a D3 team. I think Towson will dominate the boards. Towson's been known to play a physical brand of basketball. They love to slow the pace. They love to, go on the offensive glass and try to get second chance opportunities. I think Towson will get Kent State into some foul trouble and be able to capitalize at the free throw line due to their superior rebounding edge. So I think they will be able to dominate the boards. In terms of the actual game itself, I think both teams I mentioned, as I alluded to earlier, both teams play relatively different styles. Towson likes to slow the ball, not relatively to a crawl, kind of like a Virginia, so to speak. Of course, not as effective defensively because Virginia is one of the best defensive teams in the country every year. But Towson likes to play in the half court. They like to slow transition. Meanwhile, Kent State loves to play in transition. In terms of stats, Kent State has a pace rating of 79.6, which is the 29th highest in the entire country, whereas Towson's pace is 10 points lower at 69.5. And even though I don't exactly have the number for you on that one, they're somewhere in the mid to late hundreds. In terms of the Fox Sports' ranking system, they don't exactly have numbers past the first page, but they were on the 5th page out of an 8 possible pages. So they're roughly around the halfway mark in the country in terms of pace. I think Kent State, as based in just recent years, they love to play in transition. That's pretty much their main source of offense. I think Towson will do whatever it is possible to keep Kent State in the half court, and I think Kent State will struggle offensively, which is why money has come in on Towson. Plus, Kent State did look solid, but you have to wonder just how good this team is against D1 opposition, especially on the road, since this will be their first road test of the season. And I think Towson's a bit underrated in the CAA. Do I think they're going to win the conference? No, but I think this team does possess something that a lot of teams take for granted, which is just grit and physicality. I think Towson will showcase that against Kent, as I think they will against Kent, as they will be able to overpower them, and I think they will be able to just dominate the boards and keep Kent State off of their game. Plus, Kent State, I know they did look good in the first game, but they do have to replace some key pieces from last year's team, which I think will hurt them. Particularly last year, their star guard, Jalen Walker, is no longer with the program, and he was absolutely fantastic. So he's gone. I mean, you've been able to piece it so far, but then again, you haven't played any competition, as I said before. So I question just how good this team will actually be moving forward. The return of Danny Pippen is a big deal as he missed all of last season with some injuries, and he had a double-double in the first game of the season. But Towson, overall, I think that since they've already played an extra game than Kent State, they will look a little bit more sharp and more polished, and I think they will play well at home. I wouldn't be surprised to see Kent State keep this game close for a while, but I think Towson will be able to ice this game at the free throw line. And they've also shot the ball really well from just honestly all over. Towson's been really efficient offensively in the possessions they actually have. I know they try to hold the ball a long time, but at the same point, Towson's shooting 43.2% from the three-point line. So this team, whenever they do decide to shoot, tends to hit their shots. They're also shooting 48.6% from the floor. Half of that was due to a D3 team, but they also looked really good against George Washington, so that is a little bit bigger of a sample size. Other than that, though, they only turned the ball over 10 times, which is a pretty solid number to have, especially against a team that loves to play in transition. You want to try to limit turnovers as much as possible. I think as a whole, I think Towson should be able to get the job done. This game will be close, but I think Towson should win this game by about 4 points. So the play of the day will be on Towson -2, which is available on DraftKings at -112. Now, in terms of the rest of the betting card, looking at just the rest of the card, I'll start with the NFL game between the 49ers and the Seahawks. First of all, nobody really knows if Kittle's going to be playing or not. He's currently listed as doubtful, and my fantasy team needs him to play, but that's a separate story. In terms of the actual reports, it does seem like he will not be able to go, but it's kind of weird that the 49ers haven't announced anything yet. So I actually think there is a chance that Kittle could be given the green light. Do I think he'll be effective? No. I think he'll be a decoy best-case scenario. But the fact that San Francisco hasn't announced that he's not going to be playing yet, I find a little bit peculiar. And I think that he does have a shot at playing, in contrary to what other people might say. In terms of the game, though, I'm still going to lean to San Francisco. Seattle's a solid team because of Russell Wilson. I think if Russell Wilson was not on that team, I think they'd win roughly 4 games. I really do not think there's much talent on the rest of the roster. They have a very good receiving core. Josh Gordon's expected to play, so it just got even better. But in terms of the defense, it is an absolute mess. I think San Francisco will be able to run the ball down their throats. San Francisco's getting a ton of key pieces back. They're getting their fullback Juszczyk back. They're getting Staley back. They're getting McGlinchey back on their offensive line. I think they will come out. I think they'll punch Seattle in the mouth. I think this defense will be able to get after Wilson with Seattle's below-average offensive line. I think San Francisco will stack up some sacks, and I think this game will be close, but at the end of the day, I think San Francisco will win by a touchdown. So lean to the 49ers to cover the spread in that one. In terms of the NBA, lean to Boston -4, but Gordon Hayward broke his hand, so he's out indefinitely. So I question how the Celtics will adjust in terms of the minute shifts in terms of the rotation, as Hayward was getting roughly 30 minutes a game, and now he's no longer with the team. So I'm curious how Brad Stevens will splice up those minutes amongst the rest of the bench. So that remains to be seen, but that is something to keep in mind. I still would lean to Dallas, though, as they have been the much better team so far this season. Now, in terms of the other games, very entertaining game between the Rockets and the Pelicans. Rockets originally opened up -4, they're up to -6. Total's been bet up from 243 to 245. They already played once this year, game total roughly 250, but at the same point, I am going to lean to Houston. Houston's actually played better defense lately. They've given up 112 points or less in each of their last 3 games, and they have won 3 straight. Pelicans defensively have been absolutely terrible, and I think Houston will be able to score at least 120, 130 in this game, but I wouldn't be surprised to see Houston limit the Pelicans to roughly 110 points. I think the Houston's defense has definitely improved since the start of the season. I don't think the markets have adjusted accordingly. Based on pace, I can understand why this total's been bet up, but I don't think 245 is warranted. I'll lean to the under, but I would lean to Houston more to win this game by roughly 10 points. Now, in terms of anything else, looking at the rest of the betting card, I would lean to... what do I like here? I would lean to the under in the Clippers and Raptors game. Raptors looked really solid against the Lakers yesterday, but they are playing the second end of a back-to-back. And the Clippers, I know that their offense looked pretty solid, but their defense actually performed pretty well against Portland in their last game. I think that Toronto and the Clippers will have a bit of a half-court stalemate, as Toronto's not really known as being one of those teams that love to run tempo. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this game be a little bit on the lower scoring side. I think both teams will get into the hundreds naturally, but I definitely think that this game should end in either the low 100s or the high... I'd say this game will end in the low 100s. I think this game could end somewhere in the realm of, I don't even know. I'd say like 107 to like 100 or so. I think this game will be pretty low scoring. I'll lean to the under. In terms of the spread, though, I would lean to Toronto. I know the Clippers are really good. I think Toronto's a very underrated team. I don't think the Clippers should be laying 10 here. And for that reason, I'd lean to the Raptors, but mainly lean on the under, as I think this total is a bit too high, and money has already started to come in on the under as of 12:37 this morning. Or this afternoon, I should say. But in terms of the leans for college basketball, lean to North Dakota State minus 15.5, starting to get bet up to 16, but it's still available at 15.5 at some spots. I wrote an article about this for Winners or Winers. If you want to check that out, you can. Simply put, though, Cal Poly, their offense isn't good. Their defense got exposed by Santa Clara. And North Dakota State, really underrated offense. This team tends to make it to the tournament, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them go at it here as they will look to run up the score. I think they'll win by 20 because they also like to play up tempo. They like to shoot a lot of threes. They run a lot of motion. I think Cal Poly will be overwhelmed, and I think North Dakota State will be able to win this game by about 20. So lean to North Dakota State on the spread on that one. Other than that, looking at the rest of the card here, what do I like? By the way, for the record, Towson actually went up to 2.5 at some other books offshore in the recording of this video, so I would still take it at 2 at DraftKings. That is still available. So I think that line will probably close around 2.5 or 3, so there is some value on that as for the play of the day. Now, in terms of anything else, I'll lean to Belmont minus 9 here. Belmont looked really good in the first half against Illinois State. They had 56 points in the second half of the first game of the season. Belmont, I'm still a fan of the team. I think they're pretty good. It's going to take some time for them to switch gears, considering the fact that they had the same coach for 30-something years, and then he ended up leaving, and they got one of his assistants to take over. But as a whole, I still think Belmont is a solid team. I think that even though they blew the lead they had in the first game of the season, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing long-term, as I think Belmont will look to give a full 40-minute effort after such a no-show in the second half. Stanford's okay. They're not great by any means. Both teams don't play much defense, but I think Belmont should win this game by double digits. Lean to Belmont in that one. Anything else that I like? What do I like here? No. Overall, that's pretty much it. If I had to lean to anything else, I would lean to the under in the Georgia Tech and Elon game. Elon offensively is terrible. Their defense isn't great either, but Georgia Tech loves to slow the ball into the half court. I think this game will be low scoring. Georgia Tech I could see winning somewhere in the realm of 80 to 50. So I think this game will go under. Elon I think will struggle to score the ball. Lean to the under on that one. But in terms of the play of the day, it will be on Towson minus 2, which is available on DraftKings at minus 112. Other than that, though, that's going to do this installment of Scott's Selections here for Monday, November 11th. Good luck to all of you and your respective bets today. Bye, everyone.